Canada, how are you today? It's a lovely day here in Nova Scotia. We're starting this, I think, 2:33 might be our new time. We're going to be trying to start earlier. And what we're going to be doing before the question periods kick off, there's a statement period where there's just debating going on. And we're going to take a peek at that because it's always interesting. There's lots of interesting things that get said and debates that take place here. So we're going to jump into that and take a peek, see what's going on in the House of Commons today. Hey, Patty. Hi, Patty. How are you? Oh, here we go. Let's get over here. Well, well, well. Hey, Steve, what's up? How's it going today? Hey, everybody, what's up? Hi, Angus, what's up? How you doing? Oh, we need some audio for these guys.
Mr. Topaz's April 1st carbon tax increase.
Makes a little more sense when there's volume.
I respectfully request that
Doing
you
well,
consider
Patty, thank you.
pausing the implementation of the April 1st carbon tax increase. We'll see if he'll listen, Madam Speaker. So, Premier Fury all along supported carbon tax. Now he sees the light. Yet, his good friend, the Prime Minister, consistently breaks his promise, the promise that he made to Canadians to hold carbon pricing at $50 per ton. So the new goal is, of course, it's $170 a ton, and then the constant bragging that carbon tax is revenue neutral. Well, it's not, Madam Speaker, but you don't have to take my word for it. The independent watchdog, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the PBO, says that Canadians will pay more in carbon tax than they'll receive in rebates. And at the same time, this Liberal NDP coalition hasn't met one single solitary climate change target, and they won't. Yet, the member for St. John South Mount Pearl continuously talks about the cold hard cash. The cold hard cash that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are going to find in their pockets. Well, increases like the one coming on April 1st that lead
What's up,
to
BC? Hello, Joan. How are you?
2030 of 61 cents per litre aren't putting cold hard cash in anybody's pockets. I'll tell you what Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are finding cold. It's the temperatures in their homes because they can't afford to heat them. That's right. That's where they're finding the cold, Madam Speaker. So, Liberal Premier Fury also
hey, Randy, what's up, man?
Last week he said the issue for this particular tax is there are limited options to change right now in Newfoundland and Labrador. In the absence of the ability to change, what does this tax really accomplish? Well, Madam Speaker, hiking the carbon tax will accomplish more of the same, more of nothing. Common sense.
Sounds good, Dive Crew.
Leader and I, we toured Newfoundland and Labrador over the last year. We were in Labrador,
just in case anybody's wondering, I'm not trying
to
to send anybody away, but I also don't want to deceive people. The real question period probably isn't starting for another almost 45 minutes, probably 40 minutes. Just in case.
It's simply unaffordable these days.
Hey, Rocky Mountain Lady, how are you? What's up?
Food Sharing Association in St. John's last week, Madam Speaker. We were given quite a disturbing picture. Demand at the Community Food Sharing Association has risen by over 40% in the last 3 or 4 years. And they're now having to try to save food banks that are about to close their doors because they can't find the resources to supply.
Hey, Dana, what's up? How are you this morning?
Public.
This afternoon?
So we heard the struggles, Madam Speaker. We heard the pleas. Pleas like those that we heard at the food bank.
You guys all ready for today's soap opera? Think Trudeau's going to show up today? Let's put that in a poll.
Please, and I'm sure they are. We're really, really hoping that they're going to listen to the requests that they're the people that have elected them, Madam Speaker, the people that have sent them here, to sent them here to be their voice in this place. They come a long, long way every week. I look over at my colleague from Bonavista, PIERRE, Trinity. I travel on the plane with him quite
Ken,
quite
what's
a
up,
bit,
man?
Madam Speaker. He comes a long ways from out where he lives, and it's quite the trek. And he's bringing those concerns from all the way out there in Bonavista, PIERRE, Trinity to this House, and I'm sure that the folks out in Clarenville,
What kind of dogs do you have, Cooney?
New West Valley, and places like this are hoping that he remembers the pain that the hike in this carbon tax is going to bring to those folks on April 1st and beyond, as it continues on into 2030.
Is this a second, Robert?
And
I'm
I
not
hope-
sure.
and I hope
I was
that
only looking at first
honorable
names.
colleague
Hello,
and-
Robert.
And his 5 NDP Liberal colleagues, along with him, support our motion to stop the hike in carbon tax when that vote comes up later on this week.
Hey, Terry, how are you today?
There's hope, Madam Speaker. There's hope. Because if the 6 NDP Liberal members from Newfoundland and Labrador continue to neglect
Hello, Joseph. What's up?
what their
Hey, Joe.
constituents, the people that they're elected to come here to represent, to be their voice in Ottawa, if they continue to be a non-voice,
Hi, Linda. How are you
continue
today?
to vote against conservative motions like the one before this House,
Hey, Trevor. What's up? Long time no see.
despite the hike, well, there's going to be a price to be paid, Madam Speaker. And it's not going to be a price on pollution. It's going to be a price on NDP Liberal seats in this place.
Hey, Bob. What's up, man?
So, we plead with them. We plead with them, as their constituents plead with them, to vote with Conservatives to spike the hike and heed the plea.
It will add to the drama, Joan.
Madam
You and
Speaker,
Patty are
common
correct.
sense
I agree with
Conservatives
you guys.
very shortly will axe
Hello,
the tax,
Purple Cat. What's
build
up?
the homes, stop the crime, and balance the budget.
That's a funny color
Thank
for
you
a cat.
very much, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And slogans aside, let me make a plea to the member that just spoke. You know, on April the 15th, people in Newfoundland and Labrador, his constituents, a good many of them, his constituents, family of 4, will get a check deposited for $298. When you add it up, it's well over $1,000 for the year. If
No,
the
that's
member
all cool,
votes
Trevor. It's just good to see. I
against or
haven't
in
seen you in the
favor
chat
of
in a
this
while.
motion,
It's nice to
what
see
he's really
the
doing,
friendly
Madam Speaker,
faces. Like,
is he's
that's-
also voting
Hey, Ken,
against
what's up? How are
that
you?
rebate check being deposited in their accounts. And the public parliamentary budget officer made it
Flips,
very
my brother,
clear,
what's up?
80% of Canadians get more back in the rebate than they actually pay out. That is a fact, Madam Speaker. I'll say that on CTV on a political panel. The member opposite won't do that.
Kevin
Madam
Lamoureux's a
Speaker.
bit of a clown.
So will he admit why is he denying his constituents those rebate checks?
Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Coast of Bay, Central Notre Dame.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm bewildered why my colleague across the way is fighting against what an independently appointed the parliamentary budget officer, the watchdog for this place. Madam Speaker, $1,874 in Newfoundland and Labrador is what
a good
the
point,
average
Calamaro.
household will pay this year. The rebate will be $1,497.
All those networks, right? Purple Cat, like
for a net
CTV,
loss
Global,
to each
CBC.
household of
Ever see the way they throw or
$377?
toss like law ball questions to the Liberals and
Madam
NDP?
Speaker, I didn't think math changed. I mean, you could go all
Like they
the
ask
way
them
back to
questions
the
just
Greeks.
so that
It stayed the
they
same.
can address the issues they want. Like it's teed up.
Yeah, so I'm hearing feedback on both sides of the House when it's not the appropriate time, and I would just ask members to please refrain from doing that.
Yeah, I'd
Questions
rather
and
just keep
comments?
my money
Questions
too,
and
Purple Cat,
comments?
rather
The
than give it
Honourable
to you and then you
Edmonton
give me
Stratton.
some of it back. That doesn't make
I'd like to thank my
any
colleague for his
sense.
question today. You know, last week we had a constituency week, and I went to 15 different seniors residents and spoke to seniors across my riding, and they were, you know, very clearly absolutely delighted with the NDP dental care program that included seniors. And so for me, I listened to the member speaking about how he wants to make life more affordable for Canadians, and yet his party votes against things like the dental care program. His party votes against things
Backyard
like
Garden, how
the
are you
National
today?
Food Program for Children. His party votes against things like the GST, taking GST of home heating. Every time we bring forward a smart idea that will make life more affordable for Canadians, these people vote against it. The Conservatives vote against it. So when I spoke to the
Ian L.,
seniors
what's
in,
up?
my
How are you?
in my riding, they were deeply concerned about the potential of a Conservative government and asked me what I was going to do to make sure that these folks never got into power.
For Coastal Bay Central Notre Dame.
Madam
Hello,
Speaker,
Janet,
that
what's up?
member
How are you?
Should go spend a day in my constituency office in Grand Falls, Windsor, and listen to the phone calls that we get and read the emails that we get that are and seniors, Madam Speaker, and folks that are absolutely disgusted.
Hello,
with that
Cicely.
fake
How are you today?
dental program. It works for nobody, Madam Speaker. And talking about her constituents, let's talk about her constituents, Madam Speaker. In Alberta, they will pay in $2,943 this year in carbon tax. Their rebate will be $2,032, Madam Speaker.
I'm good
for a net
today.
loss to the average family in her
It's
riding
trying to be a nice
of
day in Nova
$911.
Scotia.
She's got a lot to be proud of.
Hello there, too
So
slow.
there was still some going back and forth, other people having debates, and I just want to remind members to please be respectful. If I haven't recognized them, then they're not the ones who should be speaking at the time.
Hello, Lamonte. How are you? Ready for the soap
The
opera?
time for a brief question, the honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. I don't know if I'll be able to be brief, Madam Speaker, but I will try. In the last year, I went around Quebec to talk about housing issues, and I went onto the four corners of Quebec, and I met more than 70 organizations
Hey, Rockos,
that
what's up,
represent
man?
1,500 people. People who are working with the most vulnerable, women who are victims of violence, people with intellectual disabilities, and these people talked about housing.
Hello, Conan Doyle.
homelessness.
How are you?
No one, I repeat, no one talked about the carbon tax to resolve the situation who don't have a shelter or housing. They talked about investing in social housing, investing for the most vulnerable. No one talked about the carbon tax. My Conservative colleagues said that we're close to the vulnerable, those who take care of the vulnerable. That's not what they're saying.
Brief answer, the honourable member for Coastal
Hello,
Bay
Tim,
Central
what's up,
Notre
man?
Dame.
Madam Speaker, I don't know what my honourable colleague doesn't understand about carbon tax, but a lot of the things that are consumed in his riding actually enter Canada in Vancouver. And they come across the country, and carbon tax is applied to the fuel that's used to ship everything from BC to Belle-Province and the grain, that the great bread.
I don't know why I
Quebec
find
is made
Clifford
from.
Small a little bit
All
funny,
these things,
but
the consumers of Quebec
maybe it's just the
pay
name,
for.
Cliff
And
Small,
He knows it.
like,
He knows that conservatives.
He's got a
common sense
funny
conservatives
little
have a
act-
plan
bit of an
to
accent.
build homes, and we're going to
It's
do
just
it. And he
entertaining
held
to
that man
watch.
down in his own writing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Resuming debate, the honourable for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and of course it is always a true privilege and honour to rise in this House of Commons and represent the wonderful, amazing, hard-working people of Peterborough-Kawartha. Today we have a very important Opposition Day motion put forward by the member from Carleton, the official leader of the opposition, Canada's next Prime Minister, and it is to protect and help Canadians. The reality is, life has never been more
Hey,
expensive
Conan, what's
after
up?
8 years.
Welcome to
of
the
this
chat,
Liberal
welcome to the
NDP
channel.
Prime Minister. He lost his way so long ago, he can't see the
Hey,
forest
Harry,
for the
what's
trees,
up?
I believe the saying is. He's refused to listen to the reality of what is happening outside of this building. And the motion put forward today is that given that 70% of
Hello,
provinces
Albertini,
and
what's up?
70% of Canadians oppose the Prime Minister's 23% carbon tax hike on April 1st, the House call on the NDP Liberal coalition to immediately cancel this hike. For people watching at home, you'd say, well, if 70% of Canadians agree with this, how can the Liberal NDP coalition go along with something that nobody wants?
Hello, Bonnie. What's
Madam
up? How
Speaker,
are
That's
you?
liberal math and that's liberal logic. Because not only that, they will tell you that they get more back in rebates with their carbon tax rebate, which makes no sense. Because there wouldn't even be a
Common
rebate
sense.
if you
What's
didn't take the
going
money
on?
to
How are
begin
you?
with. There's
Not a lot of you
zero
around these
common
days.
sense. And
Common
the
sense,
average
I mean.
Ontario family is going to pay almost $1,700 in carbon tax. That's just this year, Madam Speaker. The numbers in 2030 are
Michelle Ferrer is great.
$3,583.
She's really sharp. You guys like her?
This has been a lie from day one. I mean, the Prime Minister promised that initially this tax would never go higher than $50 a ton. Now, it's set to reach $170 per ton. Trudeau said the Prime Minister said the carbon tax would be revenue
Hello,
neutral,
Harold Higgins,
but the
what's up?
Parliamentary Budget Officer confirms that Canadians pay more than they get back in rebates. The Prime Minister said the carbon tax would help lower GHG emissions, but the Liberal government will not meet its own environmental targets by 2030. Why does anybody believe him? They don't. They don't. And why should they?
Yeah, I'm a
Because
fan
he
too,
tells them
Randy.
one thing and does another, and doubles down, lets his ego lead. Because it's way more important to be right than to listen to Canadians.
Michael
who
in
you are
Kitchener, what's up? How are
truly
you?
Hurting. Do you know, Madam Speaker, according to the Food Insecurity Among Canadian Families report, using data from the 2021 Canada Income Survey, almost 50% of single mothers living below the poverty line struggle with food
Yeah,
insecurity.
I agree, Cooney.
What's going to happen with this carbon tax increase on April 1st if already 50% of single mothers are struggling with food insecurity? This past week, I had the chance to visit the beautiful province of New Brunswick.
Rhonda, what is going
Shout out
on?
to the East Coast and the amazing humans that live out there. And I went to many food banks. Double, triple increase in 1 year. And the demographic of who's using that food bank? Students, seniors, working middle class, and wait for this one, active serving military families. I
See if we
actually
can get some
couldn't
legs
believe
going,
what I was
guys.
hearing when Jane told me that from the Oromocto Food Bank. I couldn't actually believe what she said. I said, what did you say? She said, yeah, we have about 50 active serving military families accessing the food bank.
Hey, Haas, what's
I said,
up?
since when? She said about 4 or 5 years. And she said,
Uh-oh. Oh, no. The signal's jammed up. What is happening?
here's the other
Here we
part,
go.
Michelle. She said
Sorry,
they have
guys.
to pay rent
That
for
was
their
his stream.
housing.
That wasn't me.
And guess how it's heated? Natural gas. What's on natural gas?
Sorry if I missed anybody.
Carbon tax. Oh, but wait, it gets even better. Because not only do they charge the carbon tax, the Liberal NDP coalition, they tax the carbon tax. That is disgusting. Do you know the
It is disgusting.
PBO report reported that the carbon tax on propane and natural gas used for greenhouses, heating and cooling livestock barns and drying grain will cost the farmers nearly $1 billion
Hey,
by
Reyes,
2030.
what's
Has
up?
anybody
Welcome to
visited
the
a farm?
chat.
I don't know if you know this or not, but farmers don't have a lot of money. Okay? Farmers are often
I don't know what I did,
what we call
Lamonte.
equity. They
I
have,
never
a
know.
lot of assets, but very little cash flow. You bankrupt farmers, you bankrupt Canadians to be able to eat. That's right. Yep. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen, and you think, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And it really makes you question what is happening. Okay, so also, according to Canada's food price report, food costs for the typical
They
family
never
of
talk
four
about
expected to
China
rise by
on here. You're right about that,
$700
Conan.
in 2024.
It's,
According to a Second Harvest report,
that Winnipeg
36%
lab
of
scandal, they
charities
talked about it a little
had
bit,
to turn
like,
people away because they
for
were
2
running
days.
out of resources.
They don't talk about China.
Did you know the First Nations, 101 First Nations communities have taken the Liberal government to court over the carbon tax? They're waking up. You know, it's all virtue signaling, Madam Speaker. How much time do I have left? Okay. Thank you so much. More. So I have this lovely letter from a woman named Barbara, and she says, I heat my home with propane and a wood stove. Not only are we paying carbon tax, we are paying HST on the carbon tax. That is double taxation. I have called and written and spoken, but I can't get any answers. You're not alone, Barb. You're not alone, because the Liberal NDP coalition don't want to listen to you. They don't. Yesterday in question period, there was an exchange between the Leader of the Opposition and the Finance Minister, and she said, we'll take no lessons from the Conservatives because we will stand for the least vulnerable. Was that a Freudian slip? I'm not sure. I want to read back to you the comments that are coming through, because
Leader
a lot
Ian?
of times what the Liberals across the way will say, oh, they're making things up. They love to gaslight Canadians or find one person to zone in on their confirmation bias and say, oh, our toxic positivity, things have never been so great. Things have never been so wonderful. We know that's not true. Hello, Michelle. I live in Peterborough. I'm a wife and a mother of 4, ages 13 years to 15 months. The increase caused by the carbon tax in 8 years of the Prime Minister's Liberal government is killing my family. My husband has a job that used to be the golden ticket of jobs here in Peterborough, and now we can barely get by. We used to spend $400 for groceries and have a month's worth of food. Now, we are lucky if that gets
Thanks,
us more than
Terry.
a week.
It's
I
a
can't
bit of a
afford
dark
glasses.
heart,
My
but
husband can't afford to go to the
not
dentist.
really.
And
Pretty
don't
nice
get me
guy.
started on the price of formula and diapers. All of this lands squarely on the incredibly corrupt shoulders of the Prime Minister Liberals and the NDP coalition. Any help you can provide and advocate for us is amazing. Please help us. Bob Bolton wrote, there should be no carbon tax in the first place. Michelle, we have all kinds of trees to look after that issue. Thanks. Good old Bobby. Megan Ireland Danellis said, as a mother of 3 and a small business owner with a partner working full-time and a part-time job myself, it's already a struggle to put food on the table and pay the bills. This tax increase will raise the prices of everything.
Hello,
yet
Dave,
again.
what's up?
I'm not sure how people are supposed to survive, let alone thrive. It is a scary state of affairs, and I really hope that our next government can find a way to clean up some of the terrible mess that's been made. I know you know, Michelle, people are suffering, and there is no need for it to be this way. Everything has been flipped, and the focus is all wrong. I've always been a proud Canadian and a patriot. These last few years, for the first time ever,
Hello,
I've
Charlene. What's
considered
going on?
leaving my beautiful home of Canada. I have lost hope, and I know I'm not alone in this. You're not alone. 70% of Canadians are experiencing what you are experiencing. Working class families can't afford to put gas in their car, food in their fridge, or heat their home. That is the reality. We
Hello,
all know
LOL.
this. The Conservatives all know this. For some reason, that side of the House, the people who are in charge of this country, fail to acknowledge it, fail to recognize it.
I have a point of order. The honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Madam Speaker, the members
You can't even say those letters, Joseph, around here.
In the area around the chamber, it's impossible.
They'll come and
to
get you.
hear from the front of the floor of the House.
I already made a signal to the Sergeant at Arms, and he's already out there taking care of that. The honourable member for Peterborough Kawartha has 40 seconds left.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And the reality, as you can see, there is literally thousands of comments. If you want to go, you can visit my Facebook page and read them, and maybe join people, because this is the reality. We hear you. We are fighting for you. We know that the Prime Minister's decision to force his tax hike on Canadians we know you don't want it. We have common sense solutions to axe the tax, and Conservatives will stand with you. We will fight for you, and we promise to make life more affordable. Thank you.
Questions and comments?
Hey, Colin Heddle, what's up?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, on April 15, there's going to be a carbon rebate checks circulated to Canadians. And the Conservative Party is going around saying that they're going to axe the tax. But axing the tax also means getting
Bud
rid
Wilson,
of the
sir,
carbon
what's going on?
rebates. And many Canadians actually factor now those rebates into their budgets, Madam Speaker. So 4 times a year, Canadians are receiving a rebate on a regular basis. Many of them factor it into their expenses, their budgets.
Good morning,
And
Tanya.
the
What's up? Or
vast
good afternoon.
majority
Good
are
afternoon
receiving
here.
more money back from the rebate than they put into the tax. That is the truth. That is the reality. Would the member make it very clear that the Conservative
Hello,
Party
crazy
is
grandma.
prepared
What's
to
up?
take away those
Grandma,
rebates
that's
that are
it.
being deposited come April 15?
Member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is so hard
Good day, Richard.
to
How are you, sir?
rationalize with delusion and liberal logic and liberal math. It is so challenging that the argument is, we're going to give you a rebate. If you didn't take the money, there would be no rebate. People
Ehren
don't
Cooper, sir.
have
What's
that
going
extra
on?
Money. The average family in Ontario, it's going to cost them $1,700, just under $1,700 in carbon tax. You know what they're going to get back? Just over $1,100. That's the parliamentary budget officer. This is math, real math. And that's the reality of it. Why are they trying to gaslight Canadians? They know the truth. They're the ones accessing the food bank, and they're the ones who can't afford to live because of them.
Hello, Denise. What's up? Oh, sorry, it's freezing up. That's the signal from Cpac. Not much I can do.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member Courtney Alberni.
In June, I asked the parliamentary budget officer that if we got rid of the carbon tax,
Gord Johns, eh?
and we go
Yeah.
towards subsidies and regulations, or we try to do nothing, what would happen? If the U.S., who's made it clear that there would be a border carbon adjustment, and what would that be? The impact
She is
that would have on
scrappy,
8 to
huh?
10 Canadians. He
She is a fighter.
cited that it depends exactly what is done in place of the carbon tax. But if we just speak about a carbon adjustment at the U.S. border, that would probably lead to an economic slowdown in Canada, and it would be significant, depending on the adjustment, of course. But he said it's not unthinkable that this would be
Oh, come on, Cpac.
this could lead to negative impacts on sectors that are more energy intensive. And he said it would drive up inflation in the U.S., and in Canada, it probably have the opposite effect. It would act as a depressor on economic activity and on prices. So it would be the opposite impact, or the effect, which is not much better. This is what he cited. In fact, you could say it's worse because it would depress economic activity. So my question to my colleague is, she ran on a price on pollution. As my colleague knows, I'm always trying to work on solutions. What are they proposing in place of a carbon tax to ensure that Canadians don't get the impact from a carbon adjustment at the border with the U.S., the U.K., and the...
Oh, man, what a shoddy signal. Sorry, gang. It's like my computer. There we go. It's just a delayed stream. Yeah, that squirrel must not be working hard enough on Dive Crew. What is up? All right, gang. While we work through this, just bear with me for a moment. We will get through this.
Peterborough Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Bloc, the
Here we go.
NDP and the Liberals all voted against it. Is this what this government
Here we go.
cares about?
Hello,
They
Maria.
don't
How are you?
care about
Hey,
the single
Jolanda.
mom. They don't care about
Hey,
how
Peggy,
they're gonna
what's
feed
up?
their children
Sorry if I missed
because
anybody.
they didn't vote with us. Could she
This won't
tell us
continue.
how we're going to help
And
these poor
this won't
single
last long. So sorry, guys. Hey, Richard. Sorry, gang. This is awful. So we're going to jump over here for a moment. Find out what the hell is going on with Cpac.
Bravo, Michelle. Bravo. Bravo.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Madam Speaker, Canadian farmers and ranchers are responsible stewards of the land and are united in their goal of feeding Canadians.
Hi, Mike.
And the
What's
world.
up?
They
Oh,
are
I
also on the
cut
front
you
lines of
already.
Climate change, often dealing with its devastating effects, including
Hey, small
drought,
game, what's up?
floods, and wildfires. The severe droughts of 2021 resulted in a 27% decline in Canadian grain production. The drought of 2023 is projected to lower the grain harvest by 6.5%, with the prairies being especially hard hit. And this year is shaping up to be a continuation
All right, guys,
of this trend.
because we're having trouble
Madam
with
Speaker,
that signal.
An overwhelming majority of Canadians, including farmers, are registering.
Drop a little bit of this.
I'm the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, but I have been looking at and visiting disaster zones since I.
We will be jumping into the question period
And I
in the
can
next
tell you,
5 minutes.
Over the years, things have gotten.
in its official kickoff.
The cost of inaction is going to be grave. When you look at the impacts that just from last year alone, the wildfires. First, actually started with floods. There were some places in Northwest Territories that they dealt with floods and immediately wildfires afterwards. People's homes were burnt. When I visited West Kelowna, and the entire town was burning, you saw the impacts that was actually taking place. And we talk about wildfires, we talk about the floods. But
I'm
let's
sorry,
not forget
Gay.
about the heat
This
dome. How many hundreds of Canadian seniors were killed because of the heat
should
dome?
get back on track very,
This
very
is the
shortly.
cost that we're talking
This is
about.
just the
So we
Liberals
cannot
announcing
afford it. Pure
their
Poilievre is playing with
reactions
fire,
to
and we
the
cannot afford that.
the reactions to the Auditor General's
Her
reports.
party, her Liberal Party in Ontario, would not include a carbon
Hi,
price
Maria,
in
what's
an
up?
Ontario
Hello,
election
Aiden.
platform. Why do you think a Liberal provincial leader is saying no to carbon pricing?
Well, we've put in place the federal system so provinces who didn't want to do it wouldn't have to do it. They can fall back on the federal system, which is what many of them have done. And,
Hello, Sunshine, what's
they
up?
can certainly do that. That's how the system was built.
But if there is no federal carbon price, she is not planning to include a support for carbon pricing in her platform. She does not support carbon pricing at this point. Why? What do you say?
Snail
that,
game,
that
sorry.
that a provincial Liberal
My
leader in
eyes are
Ontario
floating all over
is
the
not
place. I called it
supporting
small
carbon
game, snail
Well,
game.
my
Sorry.
understanding of her position
Hiya,
is
hiya.
that she would be happy to fall back to the federal system.
Comment ça se fait, M. Guilbeault, que vous soyez rendu à imposer un ultimatum au Québec pour le caribou? Puis qu'est-ce qui arrive s'il n'y a pas de stratégie déposée avant le 1er mai?
All right, guys, we've got question period right here. So
Mon désir
we're
le
gonna
plus
throw this
profond,
up.
c'est de pouvoir
L'après-midi,
collaborer avec
quand
le
vous avez un
gouvernement
petit
du Québec
creux,
sur cette question-là. C'est pourquoi, à la fin de 2022, nous avons signé une lettre d'entente sur le caribou qui prévoyait que nous allions travailler ensemble. Nous nous donnions comme objectif de protéger 65 de l'habitat du caribou au Québec. Et le fédéral est prêt à investir, à supporter le Québec là-dedans.
We're very, very
le
close.
Québec s'est engagé à faire ça.
I'm sorry for
On
the
devait avoir
delays.
la stratégie en juin dernier. Il y a eu les feux de forêt. Je pense que tout le monde comprenait que la stratégie pouvait être retardée un peu à cause des feux de forêt. Mais là, ça fait presque un an. Là, je veux dire, c'est plus un retard, c'est une excuse. Et moi, j'ai une
right.
obligation
So-
législative de protéger le caribou et son
We're
habitat.
going to get rid of that. We are pulling this over. We're ready to go, guys. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to rise
Sorry
in
for
this House
all of this.
to celebrate
That's the fun stuff.
Pierre
Hello, Lightning Rod. How are you?
and her partner Laurence Brière, who are his partner, who are a remarkable figure skating pair. It was incredible to see them perform. They received a medal at the Canadian Championships. This Cpac figure skating pair that competed
Hello,
in the
Ken,
novice
how are you?
category won out over all the other competitors of other Canadian provinces. It shows not only their talent, but
Hello,
also
Andrew.
our capacity to shine. I would like to congratulate both of you. You have all our admiration. Congratulations, we are very proud of you.
Honorable député de Saint-Léonard, Saint-Michel.
Mr. Speaker, on March 8th, I had the immense pleasure of meeting and celebrating women community leaders from my riding of St. Leonard Saint Michel. The women spoke of their personal stories, challenges, and triumphs. They are successful women not only in their respective lines of business, occupations,
likes
or
going, guys.
professions, but because
They
each
say
day,
it
Mr.
helps.
Speaker, they inspire and serve as role models for other women. Je suis particulièrement reconnaissante des efforts.
I would like to recognize our government's efforts in encouraging women and supporting their participation in the workforce. for example, with the very first strategy for women in entrepreneurship and several other measures, which are enabling women to enter the workforce in record numbers.
Let's continue to celebrate women on International Day and every day and pursue our efforts
Hello, Helena.
to create and offer them opportunities to thrive and succeed. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Tomorrow will be International Francophonie Day, and this year the theme is
Scrudo, I've never heard that
innovating
one before, Cooney.
in French.
I hear a lot of nicknames he gets
As
called.
president of
Hello, Kirk, what's up?
the Committee for Parliamentary Affairs, I would like to offer an invitation. There are more than 321 million French speakers in the world, and we need to work daily to help the French language thrive. In Canada, in Quebec, the decline of the language is a sad reality. We must be vigilant and turn things around. My party, the Conservative Party of Canada, recognizes the decline of French. We will continue to take concrete action to stop that decline throughout Canada. Tomorrow, Francophones and Francophiles, I would ask you to make a concrete gesture wherever you may be to promote our language French. Let's be proactive ambassadors and let's celebrate our beautiful language every day. Let's create, innovate, and be proud of our language, French.
Member from Don Valley West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The community of Don Valley West is
Oliphant.
deeply saddened by the loss of Ilias.
He had a lot of
Mulabai,
controversy
a
there
dear
just
friend,
before
a
Christmas,
valued
right?
colleague and a
Is it
trusted
before
advisor.
Christmas? Just after.
Ilias's unwavering commitment to advance community-based initiatives is well recognized. He was instrumental in assisting the Islamic Society of Toronto in establishing a new religious center and community space that will provide a safe and inclusive environment for Muslims in our community. I had the pleasure to collaborate closely with Ilias, particularly on our joint
I think we'll be okay,
advocacy for
Lamonte,
youth
because
initiatives.
most
Our
of the
work
world, like
together on the Canada
English
Summer
sort of
Jobs
drives
program
the
at
planet,
Masjid Dar
right?
es Salaam has helped a
That British
generation of young
Empire had a
people
huge
acquire
impact.
valuable skills, earn fair wages, and prepare for post-secondary education. Brother Ilias was committed to serving others. That commitment was rooted in his belief in humanity and in his faith. I extend my condolences to his son Arshad
Hey, Jojo,
and
what's
his
up?
family. He will be missed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, as the evening approaches, marking the arrival of Nowruz.
Hello, Mike. What's up, sir?
11:06:26 p.m. tonight, we gather to celebrate the tradition steeped in renewal of the earth and rejuvenation of our spirits. This ancient festival, rich in symbolism and joy, invites us to embrace the new year with hope and optimism. In the spirit of
You
this
learned your French
celebration,
from
let us reflect
Slapshot?
upon the wisdom of the Persian poet Khayyam, whose words resonate with the
Jonas
essence
Johnson,
of
what's up?
Nowruz.
I think I missed you earlier.
در چهره گل نسیم نوروز خوش است، در صحن چمن روی دلافروز خوش است. ای دل که گذشت هرچه گویی خوش نیست. خوش باش و زده مگو
What's up, Grimes?
که
What's
امروز
going
خوش
on?
است.
Grime family's in the
Khayyam's poetry
house.
captures the essence of Nowruz with elegance, urging us to leave the past behind and embrace the present's fresh promise. As we greet the new year, these words inspire us to meet the future with open hearts, celebrating Nowruz as a symbol of renewal, unity, and shared values. This ancient tradition beacons us towards a brighter, harmonious path in the future.
The honourable member from York Simcoe.
Mr. Speaker, it's ridiculous. The rural
Yeah,
communities
if I
of
ever
York
miss
Simcoe
anybody,
are
it's
not
not
eligible
because
to
I'm
receive the
leaving
rural
people out. I
top-up
just
on the carbon
don't see
tax
the names.
because they are
I try to say
classified
hi
as
to
Toronto by this government. And now, not a single community in Northern York region received any housing funding from the Liberals' overhyped Housing Accelerator Fund. But Toronto has received $500 million. A clear message has been sent to the residents of Georgina, East Gwillimbury, Aurora, Uxbridge, Bradford, and the Chippewas of Georgina Island. According to the Liberals, you are not Toronto enough for housing funding. But to Toronto to get the rural top-up. These Liberals are out of touch. They are hiking up the carbon tax by 23%, though it does nothing for the environment. Their housing fund won't build a single home, including in fast-growing places like York Simcoe. Enough is enough. Conservatives will spike the hike, axe the tax, and bring homes Canadians can afford.
The honourable member from King's Head.
Speaker, I rise rise today to proudly celebrate our Canadian cattle industry, our
I know this guy
ranchers,
a
our
little
beef
bit.
producers across the country who help raise quality product for our table and tables around the world. This week, representatives are in Ottawa for the annual CCA reception. And I think about champions at home in King's Hants, folks like Dean and Catherine Manning, the Olton family, and Ryan Knowles with the Hants County Meat Company. I appreciate all the work that they do in our communities
JC.
and the work that they do locally to provide great product. However, Mr. Speaker, as a young parliamentarian, I also want to recognize the work of the Canadian Cattle Youth Council, whose members I had the chance to meet with yesterday. Kimberly Lansdale, Charlene Youngblood, Scott Gerbrandt, and Patrick Sullivan. I'd like to thank them for the work that they do to help support youth farmers across the country. And to all our representatives who are here in Ottawa today, let us as parliamentarians get out and celebrate all that is good for the Canadian cattle industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Calgary, Midnapore.
All right, Cousie's fun to watch.
Continue to ask questions on ArriveCan, and Conservatives continue to push for answers. Last week, we continue to prosecute GC Strategies, an IT firm of two people that performed no actual work, yet were paid a third of $60 million in contracts for the ArriveCan app. After hiding from accountability to the point of being threatened with arrest, the two individuals finally appeared at committee. Although still evasive, MPs were able to learn that the two partners pocketed $2.5 million. And for what? One partner, Christian Firth, said he averaged 2 to 4 hours per day at a rate of $2,600 per hour. His partner said he had no clue what went on at any point of the ArriveCan process and only processed the security clearances for their subcontractors, a job he did wrong. Listen up, Liberal government. Not only must you explain why you wasted millions of dollars, but Canadians want their
Hello,
money
James.
back.
What's up,
so
sir?
start explaining and pay up.
The honourable member for Montmagny, Lille, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, there are protests, farmers' protests throughout Quebec because of the carbon tax, which is causing farmers' revenues to go down. But the Bloc Québécois is ignoring and even punishing them. The Bloc Québécois
Yeah, the
want
House
to
is filling
radically
up Lamonté.
increase liberal
You're
taxes
clever.
on gas
Hello,
and
Monique,
food,
what's
and they
up?
want to do that starting on April 1st. You'd think that is an April Fool's joke, but unfortunately, no. It's all true. And in fact, last week, the Union des Producteurs Agricoles confirmed to me that this will have a devastating impact on all Canadians, especially farmers in my region. What's the point of the Bloc Québécois? It's only punishing Quebecers and making life even harder for farmers. All Canadians would like the government and the Bloc Québécois to cancel that extremely harmful tax.
The honourable member from Willowdale.
Today marks the spring equinox, otherwise called Nowruz, which marks the new year for Iranians, Afghans, Ismailis, Baha'is, Zoroastrians, and over 300
This is the
million
first time I've
individuals
ever seen
across
Ali
the world.
Hessasi
Many around
speak
the
in the
world are
House.
excited to welcome spring and the promise of a new year. I'm certain every member of this House joins me in wishing all those celebrating Nowruz across Canada a Happy New Year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Happy Nowruz.
Wonderful job. Wonderful job.
L'honorable député d'Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, Canadian athletes gathered in Calgary for the Special Olympic Winter Games, and competitors from Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing sure made us proud. From Manitoulin Island, skip Tyler Madabi and team members Dylan Danville, Dane Tipper, Austin Recollet, and William Leclerc brought home the gold for curling, and Matthew Bedard won 3 bronze medals in snowshoeing. Elliott Lake's Adam Cormier took home a silver in team and a bronze in singles in 5-pin bowling. Chaque année, les entraîneurs...
Every year, coaches, volunteers, and employees make the Special Olympics something to be proud of. It's important that we acknowledge all that they do to support and encourage our athletes.
Mr. Speaker, the oath of the Special Olympics is let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. Our Special Olympians who participated at this year's Winter Games continue to exemplify this oath. Congratulations, Tyler, Dylan, Dane, Austin, William, Matthew, and Adam. You have shown strength, determination, and courage during these challenging competitions. We are all so very proud of your accomplishments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak about the 80th anniversary of the Rimouski Maritime Institute of Quebec. This great institution was founded on May 24th, 1944. It was founded by Jules-André Briand, and now, 80 years later, it remains the only training center for a maritime workforce in Quebec and the only francophone institution of this kind in North America. Since it was founded, the Institute has trained generations of experts who have contributed to the maritime industry in all parts of the world. I'd like to thank everyone, both in the past and today, who have promoted our expertise, which is recognized throughout the world. I hope that this national treasure will experience another wonderful 80 years. And on April 6th, there will be a banquet to celebrate the 80th birthday altogether.
The Honourable Member from Cumberland, Colchester.
Here we go. Ellis is all right.
A day of lighthearted fun for Canadians where we amuse one another with practical jokes. Not for this uncaring NDP Liberal Prime Minister who will play a cruel joke on Canadians by increasing his carbon tax once again, this time by 23% on everything. 70% of Canadians oppose this tax, and all Atlantic Canadian premiers, including the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, have joined common sense Conservatives in demanding that this government axe the tax.
Dive Crew Canada doing what he does, helping out the channel. Amazing. Welcome new members.
Now we see charities running out of resources and money to help
Thank
Canadians.
you, Dive Crew
A
Canada.
wise Nova Scotia once commented, and I quote, "No one would believe that you pay money to the government and they will give you more back. This simply is not true." Today, in the Nova Scotia legislature, all political parties voted unanimously, calling on all Nova Scotia MPs to scrap the carbon tax hike. Mr. Speaker, axe the tax.
The Honourable Member from Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, exciting news. Tax season is here.
This chick is always baked. I'm pretty convinced that she's on gummies or edibles or something all the time.
Where it applies, like my home province of Ontario, the Canada Carbon Rebate will put even more money back into the pockets of most Canadians than they pay into the carbon pricing system. Affordability is top of mind in everything our federal government does. And with the Canada Carbon Rebate, we are directly putting money into the
Is that just me, or does she seem a little wacky?
Families are counting on these checks, especially low and middle income.
All right, guys, I think we're going to be dropping right in. I think we're going to be launching question period right away.
Conservative MPs want to cut these rebates that low and middle income Canadians rely on, but we won't let them. Canadian families can count on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Here we go. We're ready to go. There he is. Polievre's on deck. Let's get her going.
The Conservatives have an excellent tax to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. The Prime Minister is simply not worth the cost after 8 years.
Carbon tax are not worth the cost after 8 long years. The Parliamentary Budget Officer confirms that in every single province, Canadians pay far more in taxes than they get back in rebates, a tax that will go up 23%. Today, common sense Conservatives are calling for the Prime Minister to grant his caucus a free vote on our motion to spike the hike.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh my goodness, he's in the House.
Mr. Speaker, 8 out of 10 families throughout the country where we've put a federal price on pollution receive more money from it than they pay into it. What the Leader of the Opposition is proposing is to remove not only checks that are delivered for families that help with groceries, with rent, with the impact of climate change, but they are also doing nothing to fight climate change, to build a stronger future. We are here to help Canadians with checks. We are here to fight against climate change. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Understand that after 8 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost. And they're right. According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, this Prime Minister's carbon tax will cost the average Nova Scotia family $1,500. That's why the Nova Scotia Legislature voted unanimously, Liberals, Conservatives and NDP, to call on federal MPs representing the province to vote with the common sense Conservatives to spike the hike. Will he allow a free vote so Nova Scotians can vote for their constituents rather than the party boss?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Hello, Marie. How are you today?
A family of 4 in Nova Scotia gets about $824 back in the year for the price on pollution. The Canadian carbon rebate delivers more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians right across the country. The Leader of the Opposition wants to take away those Canada carbon rebate checks from Canadian families, where 8 out of 10 families do better, even with the price on pollution. It's a way of fighting climate change, of building a safer, more prosperous future, and putting more money back in the pockets of Canadians, something he wants to take away.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister has finally done something helpful when it comes to math. He says that his rebate for Nova Scotians is $850. Well, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that the cost is $1,500 for the average Nova Scotia family. So he wants to take away $1,500 from the average Nova Scotia family in carbon taxes and give back only $850. Everybody knows that the carbon tax is just like him, not worth the cost. Will he allow a free vote?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader of the Opposition wants to take away the Canada carbon rebate checks that land in Nova Scotians' mailboxes, but in the pockets of families right across the country where the price on pollution is in place, because 8 out of 10 of them do better with the price on pollution and the Canada carbon rebate than they would. He wants to take away those checks from Canadians, and he wants to do far less to fight against the climate change impacts that Canadians are feeling from coast to coast to coast. No plan for the future, no money for Canadians.
Yeah, right. Like, can you imagine getting up there and like lying and knowing that you're lying?
To Ontario, where now the Liberal leader of the provincial party has flip-flopped and says that she too is against the Prime Minister's carbon tax. Maybe that's because she read the Parliamentary Budget Officer report showing Ontarians will pay $1,674. That's more than $600 more than the rebate in that province. So, will the Prime Minister allow his Ontario MPs to have a free vote on our common sense Conservative motion to spike the hike?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, families in Ontario are facing higher prices for groceries, higher costs for rent, and we are delivering a Canada carbon rebate that leaves them better off. 8 out of 10 Canadian families across the country do more money in their pockets with the Canada carbon rebate than the price on pollution costs them. At the same time, the price on pollution is bringing down carbon emissions, preparing a cleaner economy of the future, and putting more money back in Canadians' pockets. The Conservatives want to take away the Canada carbon rebate checks. We're going to continue to support families on affordability and fighting climate change.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Right from the Parliamentary Budget Officer's numbers, he says $1,674 is the cost of the average Ontario family, and the rebate is only $1,047. So Ontarians are paying more than they get back, just like British Columbians, where the NDP government is administering the federally mandated carbon tax. And according to the Vancouver Sun today, the budget presented by the NDP in that province says the carbon tax will raise $9 billion over 3 years and only pay back $3 billion. Mr. Speaker, that's a nearly $6 billion net carbon tax cost. Will he allow BC MPs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for Canadians watching politics and watching this question period, for reporters up in the gallery, or anyone who wants to see a concrete example of the fact that the leader of the official opposition doesn't care about facts, doesn't care about evidence, doesn't care about how the Federation works.
So fake.
Just wants to make clever
Hi, Sheila.
arguments and to score partisan points. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, that British Columbia price on pollution has been there since 2008 and will continue to be administered by British Columbia, not the federal government. Well done.
Hey, Norm, what's up, buddy?
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the government...
Yeah, it is fake, a lightning rod. Justin Trudeau is a fake person.
Order.
He's a psycho.
I would like to invite the leader of the Bloc Québécois to restart his sentence, his question. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the government in Canada are loving the fiscal imbalance. The federal government receives more in tax than what its jurisdictions are asking for, and provinces and Quebec are receiving less than their just part. Will the government and does the Prime Minister and the government recognize that Quebec's extreme deficit is fabricated by the federal government of Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in this federation, that is Canada, the federal government is here to work with provincial governments to deliver what Canadians need from coast to coast to coast. We have made record investments.
Slow in catching you there earlier,
healthcare,
Murray. How are you today?
in dental care, in transfers to provinces to deliver the services that they need. I understand that the leader of the Bloc Québécois wants to make this a debate on Quebec's sovereignty, but the reality of the matter is that we are working very well together, and we will continue to make sure that all Canadians from coast to coast to coast prosper. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. We won't make it a debate, but he owes $6 billion to Quebec when it comes to healthcare. $1 billion for welcoming refugees. That's $7 billion total on an $11 billion deficit. Everyone is against him, and he is throttling and strangling Quebec. Is he using that money to try and force Quebec to follow the federal government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, you will understand that when I talk to Quebec, when I work with Quebecers, I'm working with them.
You think this guy's a real person, Lightning Rod?
I'm not working with the Bloc Québécois.
Really?
I'm working with the Prime Minister of Quebec, the Premier of Quebec.
Do you know about
rather.
the scams and scandals? Like, it's
We
not
had an
one
excellent
thing.
discussion on healthcare,
It's
on
dozens
immigration, on
and
economic
dozens
growth.
of things.
We won't always agree on everything, of course,
And
but we
billions of
do agree on the need to work together in a constructive way without looking for petty squabbles, which is what the Bloc Québécois seeks to do every single day.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Here we go. JAGMEET's in the house.
Decades of liberal and conservative failure, Indigenous communities continue to live in overcrowded homes that are in desperate need of repair. The
Look at this
Liberals
watch.
promised to make a major step forward to improving this by 2030, but today's Auditor General report makes it clear that the Liberals will break yet another promise to Indigenous people. So will the Liberal government stop spending millions of dollars on private consultants and make this serious issue a priority in the upcoming budget?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we thank the Auditor General for her report and are, of course, carefully reviewing all of her recommendations to pursue a path forward that effectively addresses those concerns. In regards to Indigenous cooperation and partnerships, whether it's on housing or policing, consultation is at the heart of everything we do. We're committed to working in partnership with First Nations to advance these priorities.
Thanks for your donation. L'Honourable Chef.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. My apologies. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Indigenous communities are living in overcrowded housing units that are in
JAGMEET's phony
desperate
too.
need of repair.
There was a
The
time
Auditor
I
General's
was a
report
fan.
released today
Like, I trusted him
shows
and thought that
80%
he was
of
going to be
housing
fighting
needs
for
are
the
not
hard-working
being
Canadian
met.
families.
The Prime Minister would never allow this kind of thing to happen in Toronto. So why
Hey,
does he
Mateus,
have lower
what's up?
standards for Indigenous communities? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that's rightly false. What has just been proffered by the leader of the NDP. We have invested historic
Hello,
amounts
Louise
to work
Anderson.
with Indigenous communities on housing, on services and healthcare, on assistance to help economic prosperity. There is still a lot of work to do, we recognise it, but the progress that we have done on reconciliation and our partnerships with Indigenous peoples will continue, and we would like to thank the Auditor General for her recommendations. We will continue to work hand in hand with Indigenous communities to deliver.
L'Honourable Chef.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
April Fool's Day carbon tax hike of 23% will hit Nova Scotians especially hard. The Prime Minister's tax will cost $1,500 for the average Nova Scotia family, far more than they get back in rebates. That's why Nova Scotia's Assembly passed a unanimous motion with all three parties supporting it, calling for federal MPs from that province to vote with Conservatives to spike the hike. One of those MPs is from Kings Hants, the chair of the Agriculture Committee, which has been studying the carbon tax paying for farmers.
Cody Bloyd.
So the question is for the chair of the Agriculture Committee, will he vote with us to spike the hike?
Oh, well, Mr. Speaker, what are you doing? Just delaying us here. What is Fergus up to, guys? It's getting in the way of our soap opera. Order, comrades.
So, colleagues,
He's a loser.
Of course, questions can be asked of the government regarding administrative issues of the government, and of course to committee chairs. It's important for Canadians to understand, though, that when questions are asked of committee chairs, it has to be regarding stuff that has committee business. That's before the committee right now, and so in consultation, we realize that that isn't the issue that is here before. So I see that the Honourable Minister for Housing is rising on his feet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And look, what the honourable member is actually suggesting is false. We
Dancing
have
clown.
real-world data to demonstrate in
Sean
provinces
Fraser
where
gonna
the
get
system
groovy.
actually applies, families receive hundreds of dollars more each year than they pay in fuel charges. The Conservatives
That's a moron.
pretend to care about affordability, yet they oppose measures to put more money in the pockets of families. They pretend to care about affordability, but they oppose measures that protect seniors' pensions. They pretend to care about affordability, but they vote against measures to remove the interest on Canada's student loans. Mr. Speaker, we will do everything we can to make life more affordable, including putting more money in the pockets of families while we fight climate change at the same time.
Sean Fraser destroys every area that he
Parliamentary
touches.
censorship proves everything you need to know about this and everything else in this government. I asked a question of the member for Kings Hants, the chair of the Agriculture Committee, who's now studying the painful impacts of the carbon tax, and the front bench here shut him down, told him to sit down and shut up because they have a better mouthpiece for the PMO who would stand and speak in his stead. Mr. Speaker, the question is for the member for Kings Hants, the chair chair of the Agriculture Committee. His committee studying how the carbon tax hurts farmers. Will he vote to spike the hike?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Speaker, if the honourable member has qualms about the member for King's Hands, I can reassure him he is a champion for his community. He launched a petition
Whatever.
recently to stand
These
up to
clowns.
the Conservative government in Nova Scotia for changes to the agricultural sector in his community. Every time the Conservatives ask a question about the environment, it's to find out ways that they can do less. The member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke has suggested flooding in the Ottawa River was a result of regulations that were not in place. The member from Caribou, Prince George, has suggested climate change is not a result of industrial pollution, but of more body heat from a growing population. The member from Red Deer Lacombe visited school kids to say carbon dioxide was plant food. Mr. Speaker, this...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's going to slam him back.
It is a joke, an April Fool's joke, and the joke is on Canadian taxpayers, especially Nova Scotians, who will have to pay $1,500 in higher carbon taxes after that hike goes ahead. He says that the member for King's Hands is a champion who can't even...
He's not a champion, he's a loser.
Silenced by his own MPs. Will the member...
Well, Mr. Speaker's going to get involved. It's the Liberals that are rowdy, see. It's the Liberals that are rowdy. Order. Colleagues.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition has 10 seconds left on the clock.
Will the censored champion break his silence and tell us, will he vote for his constituents to spike the hike, or will he rip them off on April Fool's?
It's pretty sure.
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Speaker, the Conservatives want to peddle false information to trick Canadians into voting for them. The reality, proven not by projections, but by real-world data, is that people who live in my province receive more money every year.
I live in his province, and I do not. He is lying.
Everything the Conservatives do.
Order. The Honourable Minister has 15 seconds left on the clock.
Mr. Speaker, at every instance the Conservatives have an opportunity to speak in House, they do one of two things. Advocate to do less on the environment or to take money from families in my community. I will support neither. We will do whatever we can to put more money in the pockets of families and do the right thing for future generations.
Whatever, man. Do you trust this guy, Lightning Rod? Do you trust Sean Fraser? Dancing fool? Come on.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the question was for the silent member from King's Hands. He is asked to explain how he's voting for a carbon tax of $1,500 per family that only pays back $963 in rebates. I asked him specifically to stand and answer, but he's been shut down and shut up by his masters in the PMO. So once again, will the chair of the Agriculture Committee and member for King's Hands stand in today and tell us whether he will vote to spike the hike or raise the tax?
Order. I will invite all members to please listen to their House Leader and the House Leader teams. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And
Oh,
the
Lord.
Leader of the Opposition knows full well the
McKinnon's
rules
brutal.
of this place and knows full well that members on this side are proud and pleased to defend the initiatives and the affordability measures.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, to wait his turn to ask a question before taking the floor. The Honourable Government House Leader has 23 seconds left on the clock.
The Leader knows the rules of this place and knows that on this side of the House, we're pleased and proud to speak to the affordability measures and the things that we're putting in place to make life more affordable for Canadians. But while we're on this theme, I have a question for the member of the Defence Committee from Selkirk Interlake. Why did he sell out the people of Ukraine in voting against the free trade arrangement?
Hello, Tina. How are you?
Order. I'll ask the Honourable Government House Leader to please have order in this House. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the people of King's Hants, Nova Scotia, are learning they don't have a voice in Parliament because he has been silenced. The Prime Minister is terrified that he might stand up and get off script. He knows that the unanimous will of the Nova Scotia legislature, Liberals, Conservatives, and New Democrats, was passed in a motion calling for all of that province's MPs to vote against the hike. So will the member for King's Hants, who's the chair of the Agriculture Committee, stand up for farmers in his riding and vote with us to spike the hike? Yes or no?
Yeah, we gotta get Ukraine right off the table. Like, who cares?
Mr. Speaker, the member for King's Hants stands up for farmers, stands up for his constituents, stands up for the people of Nova Scotia, and stands up for the people of Canada every single day. On this side of the House, we are incredibly proud to have him as our colleague. And one thing that he knows is the people of King's Hants do not need cuts, 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 and that is all the Conservatives have to offer them or any single Canadian.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the member for King's Hants is in the Witness Protection Program.
It's funny.
He can't possibly stand up when his whip waves for him to sit down, which is exactly what happened a moment ago when I asked him a legitimate question as chair of the Agriculture Committee, a committee that's studying the devastating impact of the carbon tax on farmers in his riding and across the country. So for a sixth time, will he come out of the Witness Protection Program and announce whether he will vote for our motion to spike the hike?
It's funny, Randy. Good one. That is.
Mr. Speaker,
Yeah, it's not a slimming color for
love
CHYSTIA.
to talk Canada down. They traffic in fear and falsehood. But on this side of the House, we believe in Canada and we believe in Canadians. And that's why I am so glad to share some good news with the members of this House. And that is the inflation number for February, which came out this morning, 2.8% below expectations, within the Bank of Canada's target range. That is the second month in a row. In January, it was 2.9. Within the target, our plan is working, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. In 12 days, Ottawa will cut $1 billion from healthcare if Quebec does not accept conditions that are its own jurisdiction. 12 days when we are talking about sums that Quebec and Ottawa have been agreeing on for over a year. If the federal government's priority were patience, this money would have been transferred a long time ago. But no, in 12 days, it's either the axe or accepted conditions. The federal government is holding sick people hostage with the money they pay in taxes. Why not simply give priority to patients by transferring the money right now without conditions? The Honourable Minister for Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a bit odd. It's always the Bloc Québécois who are looking for squabbles. But when I talk to Minister Dubé and the Quebec government, they want to work with a spirit of cooperation with our government to improve the health of all Quebecers. And that is the reason for which there will be an agreement with the province of Quebec before the end of the month, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. We could talk about tense intergovernmental
All right, a little break there. It's been
if only
intense.
there were relations. Instead,
A lot of stuff
the federal
going
government
on.
has entered the phase of just saying
Hello,
no.
Chris
no
Flood,
to
how are you?
unconditional increases in health transfers, no to the right to opt out of dental and medical insurance, no to support the reception of asylum seekers. Finally, the only thing the federal government won't say no to is our tax dollars. But Quebecers are entitled to have their say on what the federal government does with their money. Why is it so difficult to simply respect Quebec's wishes and say yes for once? The Honourable Minister for Transport. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois has become the paragon of no. No to collaboration, no to sharing information, no to dialogue, no to reaching results, no to working for Quebecers. They want things to fail, but that is not the case. We are working well with Quebec. The Minister for Health is doing extraordinary work. Great meetings with his Quebec counterpart. They're not there at the negotiating table. They don't know what's going on. All they want are squabbles.
POILIEVRE, not
and when it
WEF.
doesn't
That's
work, they
misinformation
try again.
there.
But that's not the case because we are
from
working
reality.
together for all Quebecers.
Just so you know.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. We might not be in the government, but we've just enumerated a number of budgetary measures. Because it's also no to full immigration powers for Quebec, no to Bill 21 on the secular nature of the state, no to advance requests for medical assistance in dying. It's almost on principle, even when it costs nothing. The federal government simply says no to Quebec. What a contrast. In this week when we are paying tribute to Brian Mulroney, who advocated a federalism of honour and enthusiasm for Quebecers, does the government realise that saying no to everything and saying no all the time is exactly the opposite of the spirit? The Honourable Minister for Health. Mr. Speaker, it's only the Bloc Québécois that says no all the time. The Bloc Québécois is seeking out problems, seeking out squabbles, but for us, we seek out solutions together with Quebec to make sure that information is present in every province and every territory. And I'm eminently proud that we have an agreement with every province and territory so that we can increase the quality of healthcare throughout Canada. That is our objective. We will work in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration.
Clown suit
We're not
that Mark Holland's
just
wearing,
going to play partisan politics like they want us to.
Plays the part of the clown.
Last year in my riding,
All right,
Hope
Rachel
Farms,
Thomas.
a local producer, was forced to pay $62,000 just in carbon tax on his natural gas alone. That's $62,000. And what this Liberal NDP government doesn't understand, because it is so out of touch, is that when Canadians go to the grocery store, they pick up that bill when they go to buy groceries for their families. Canadians are already struggling, and now on April 1st, they're going to face another increase of 23%. Will the Prime Minister spike the hike and axe the tax?
The Honourable Minister.
And, you know, I'd like to say to the member opposite, I want a reminder of the rural top-up coming to the carbon rebate. So a family of four in Alberta is going to see $2,160. A family in my riding is going to see $1,430 when they live in a rural area. My friends, we know what it's like. That's why we're there to help people with the carbon rebate. That's why we're there to help with the childcare benefit. That's why we're there to help with housing. We're there to help Canadians, Mr. Speaker, in rural areas as well.
Before I get
Hey,
to
Larry
the
Thompson,
member
what's
from
up?
Lethbridge, I'm going to ask all members, please, to only take the floor when they are recognized by the Speaker to do so. The Honourable member from Lethbridge.
I think what's clear is that the Liberals have a dysfunctional relationship with the truth.
Yeah.
You see, Canadians pay more than they actually get back. And so for the average Albertan family, they pay $2,943. Meanwhile, they get back $2,032, which means ultimately they are $1,000 in the hole. That is how much they are having to remit to this government. That is how much this government is pickpocketing from them. Why is this government doing that to Canadians when they are already struggling to pay their bills, make ends meet, provide for their family?
The Honourable Minister.
Hello, Andrew
Speaker,
Rourke.
I'm not sure what's happening on the Conservative side of this House. Maybe it's that they've joined the Ag Chair in the Witness Protection Program when it comes to defending the interests of Albertans and their pensions. Where's the MP for Edmonton Mill Woods? Where's the...
Bolsona's such a little geek, right? Pretty funny little nerd.
Order. Order. Colleagues. The honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's, I'm going to ask him and ask all members, please, to allow members to speak for two reasons. One, so that the speaker can hear the question or hear the response. And secondly, is because there are members who do not speak the other official language. And if they're trying to listen in their earphones, they can't hear. So please, I'll ask all members to restrain themselves. The Honourable Minister has 20 seconds left on the clock.
Mr. Speaker, where are the Conservative MPs in this House when it comes to defending Albertans and making sure they have a dignified retirement? They are silent on CPP. They are silent on defending Albertans. They have been muzzled by their leader, and they are not standing up for Albertans, despite Danielle Smith's disastrous attempt to pull the Canadians out of the CPP. The Conservatives of nowhere. We're here for...
They're all fired up. The Liberals are, for some reason.
Colleagues, it's been pointed out to me on several occasions that question periods should be 45 minutes long. If we take up time,
it would be
from
if he
here,
would
that
sit
means
down
that
and shut up.
questions, get dropped. So let's not do that. Let's try to keep ourselves to time by respecting those who have the floor. I'm certain everybody would like to hear the question from the member from Tobic-Mataquac.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll tell you where Albertan MPs are. They're standing up for their constituents and voting non-confidence in this government that needs to be replaced. Mr. Speaker,
Bragdon's
after
pretty
8
funny.
years of this Liberal NDP government, upwards of 50 active military families are using the food bank, and I just visited one in Oromocto, New Brunswick. 50 families who are serving at Base Gagetown, Canada's largest military base. This is an absolute disgrace and completely unacceptable. Now they're adding insult to injury by hiking their punitive, ineffective, and useless carbon tax. When will they finally listen to Canadians and show some respect to our nation's finest?
Oh, Bannister Post. It's good. It's good. Went off.
The Honourable Minister for Rural Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I really find it quite rich coming from the member opposite, from Tobic-Mataquac, when they voted against a raise to our hard-working DND employees. You know, I also would like to ask the member, they voted against the increase for ACOA last fall when they stood and we had the all-night morning marathon. I'd love to ask him what he was going to say to the 106 projects that were funded in his riding that he voted against. Trust me, we'll be telling them that we have the backs for small businesses in rural New Brunswick and rural Atlantic Canada.
The Honourable Member from Tobic-Mataquac.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to tell them that I was voting non-confidence in this government that needs to be replaced. This government has caused the inflationary crisis through reckless spending, and now they're hiking a carbon tax by 23% on gas, heat, and food on April 1st. If they really cared about Canadians, especially those who sacrifice so much in service to our country, they would listen to the well over 70% of Canadians who are demanding them to get off their backs and axe the tax.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister.
Seems that way, doesn't it, Eric?
Mr. Speaker, there is so much shouting
Lord.
today that I can forgive the member opposite for not hearing earlier today the good news for Canadians, which is thanks to the hard work of Canadians, and it has been a challenging time. Inflation in February is back to the Bank of Canada's target range, and that followed the numbers for January. Inflation back to the Bank of Canada's target range. This is good news for Canadians who have been through a hard time. We support Canada and Canadians. All they want to do is cut, cut, cut.
Bravo. The Honourable Member from Edmonton-Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker,
right,
Edmontonians are experiencing a double housing crisis. Rent is increasing at the fastest pace in the country, all while we're seeing the lowest vacancy rates we've had in a decade. The Conservative slogans won't build affordable homes, and the Liberals aren't fixing the problem they've created. The NDP's Protecting Renters Fund would help save affordable homes and give renters the hope they need. Will the Liberals commit to including this fund in the budget so Edmontonians don't go houseless.
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructures and Community.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and for his advocacy. I had the opportunity to be in Edmonton recently to meet with the Mayor and the Provincial Minister in Alberta, as well as my colleague, the member for Edmonton Centre. We are working hard to advance additional funding to support community-based organizations that support Canadians who are living without a roof over their head. We also very recently had the opportunity to share an agreement with $175 million behind it that will build thousands of homes in Edmonton, including more rentals, which will help reduce the cost of rent and continue to support people who are looking to find a place to live. There is no silver bullet to the housing crisis, but we will pull every lever at our disposal to help solve it by working together with Edmonton.
The Honourable Member from Timmins, James Bay.
The European
All
Union
right,
states
Charlie
that
Angus.
Netanyahu is using deliberate starvation of children in Gaza as a weapon of war. Human rights groups have spoken out against targeting of journalists, civilians, hospitals, aid workers, and the UN has called out for Canada for complicity in this because we provide the military weapons to Israel. Last night, Parliament called for an end to military aid to Netanyahu's government, and yet numerous military supply deals are still in the works. So will the Minister respect Parliament and tell us whether or not deals like the guns from Colt and Kitchener and armed vehicles from Rochelle and Brampton will be sent to Israel, yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to begin by saying that yesterday for me was the day I was very proud to be a parliamentarian. In this House, we came together, 4 to 5 parties, to find a workable solution, to find a Canadian position that Canadians could be comfortable with. We will continue to advocate for a ceasefire. We will continue to not sell arms as we have
anybody in that
promised,
part of the
and continue
world cares what
make sure
Canada's
that we
role
bring
is.
hostages
Like,
back
of
to
course
where
they'll
they
take our
belong in
money.
their
I'd take
We
their
will
money,
continue to do
but
that. I invite the Conservatives
besides
to be
that,
as,
they don't
engaged in this
care
as we
about
are.
what we think or any. Just they'll take our weapons and money.
The Honourable Member from Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, we all recognize the crucial importance of accessible, high-quality child care for families in the Northwest Territories. With the increase of cost of living, accessible daycare is vital. Families in my riding and across the North have been eager to see this plan built out. To the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, what's being done for the Northwest Territories and for Northerners more broadly?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
I met with Jude
Hello,
from the
Bannister
Yellowknife,
Post Dog, Suds.
Jennifer at Aurora College, and many
Hippy dippy
others who
dippy.
were able to share with me firsthand the impact of our Canada-wide system on making life more affordable. As of April 1st, families in Northwest Territories will see their childcare fees reduced to an average of $10 a day, saving them up to $9,000 each year per child. This is meaningful savings, Mr. Speaker, each and every month for the moms and dads in Northwest Territories to put towards the essentials that their families need.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. They're starving. That's how they are. That's the explanation of the food bank owner in Montreal. People are waiting in lines up. There was pushing because there wasn't enough food. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, food banks are crowded, overcrowded because food costs too much. What is the Prime Minister doing? Raising the carbon tax on April 1st with the support of the Bloc. It costs a lot to block, Mr. Speaker. When will they cancel the 23% increase in the tax slated for April 1st? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. The survival of our planet is at stake. I cannot ignore this climate emergency and continue to look my two sons in the eyes. I would like to quote Premier Legault. He's proud of Quebec's carbon capture system. It's a Quebec system, and Quebecers are proud of it. The Conservatives want to demolish it. We will not allow this. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the survival of Quebec families and a growing number of workers is at stake right now because food costs too much. Food costs too much. Why? Imagine Quebec imports food from the rest of Canada. Farmers that grow food pay the carbon tax. The food processors pay the carbon tax. Truckers who transport this food pay the carbon tax. And guess what? Who pays the end bill? Quebec families, Mr. Speaker. Carbon tax that the Liberal Bloc wants to increase costs Quebecers a lot too. When will they end this craziness? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives are playing with words, we have learned that the UN has just said that 2024 will be the hottest year in history. And what we hear from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, is to do nothing. The planet is sounding the alarm, and that is why on this side of the House, we're going to continue to invest to fight climate change. We're going to continue to invest in Canadian families. And, Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to invest in this despite the fact that the Conservatives want to ignore climate change in this country. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Chemins-Lévis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 8 years of this Liberal government, more and more Canadians are using food banks. People are so hungry that tension is mounting in food bank lines. So much so that the police have to intervene to restore order during food distribution. The Liberal government, supported by the Bloc, is going to raise, once again, the carbon tax on April 1st. It's not an April Fool's joke. It costs a lot to vote Bloc. Apart from making Quebecers suffer even more, what's the Bloc for? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I think there are a lot of people who are watching us at home and just can't believe how much disinformation from the Conservatives taking place. It seems to be limitless. The member just asked a question, and they voted in favor of the carbon price in Quebec. They were part of a government that was a North American leader that was under their climate-denying leader. They've changed their minds, and they've denied all their principles. This is unacceptable. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Chemins-Lévis. I would ask him to read our leader's speech when he came to Quebec during the Conservative Convention. Inflation has already reached devastating levels, creating a cost of living not seen in 40 years. Sorry, colleagues. I would like to ask members to please stop speaking so we can hear the question. I would ask the member for Bellechasse-les-Chemins-Lévis to start again.
Hello, Wayne Roberts. What's up?
Mr. Speaker, inflation has already reached devastating levels, a level we haven't seen in 40 years. People in Canada are now unable to feed themselves. It's shameful, but the Bloc proudly supports the 23% increase in carbon tax. It's already too expensive to feed ourselves, but it'll be even more expensive to vote Bloc. Can the government show some compassion and cancel its new carbon tax hike slated for April 1st? The Honourable Minister of Transportation. Mr. Speaker.
Hey, Frank, what's up,
Quebec's, speech. Is it that speech or where the leader of the opposition attacked the mayor of Montreal, the Quebec City mayor? Or was it the speech where he said that climate change didn't exist and the Conservatives voted? Or was it the speech where he said that he was going to turn his back on families, seniors, young people, students?
Pablo
or he
looks
said
like
he
a
would
younger Kenny
cut
Rogers
almost everything. Remind
than he
me,
did
which
last
speech
week.
are you talking about? Or perhaps it was all this in the same speech that was said in Quebec City. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. The federal government's unilateral increase in Quebec's immigration targets is a historic loss of sovereignty for Quebec. When Quebec sets its targets at 50,000, it's 50,000, not 60 or 70,000. If, once the thresholds have been set, the minister wanted to increase family reunification, he should have collaborated with Quebec. For example, he could have finally proposed to lighten Quebec's load with regard to asylum seekers, but he never did. He wanted to force Quebec to increase its targets, whether it wanted to or not. When will we see a collaborative approach instead of a condescending tone? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, I asked the member for Belle-Île about the Canada-Quebec Accord. I should have been more precise. I would just ask them to read Article 13 for more clarification. Clearly, there is collaboration that is very intense with Quebec. We all have our responsibilities to take, and I will continue to work with Minister Fréchette on our common priorities. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Clearly, no one is against family reunification. We're just against the imposition of irresponsible federal policies on Quebec. If the minister wanted to, he would have negotiated compromises. But let's look at his record. He's forcibly increasing Quebec's immigration targets. He's largely responsible for the record increase in temporary immigration. He's also responsible for the inordinate number of asylum seekers Quebec is taking in without properly distributing them. In all three categories, Ottawa is unilaterally increasing immigration to Quebec with no regard for our reception ability or additional funding. Is this planned or is it a loss of control? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Mr. Speaker, imagine you're a doctor and we tell you to take in 10 patients and they send you 20. This is ridiculous, and this is the situation Quebec families are experiencing. What I hear from the Bloc is disdain for Quebec families. When will they, when the Quebecers have and Canadians have family abroad and they're trying to be reunited with them, it tears them apart. So we're trying to work in their favour. Thank you.
Honourable Member from Mission Masqueet, Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, this Prime Minister
What do you
is
got,
simply
Brad?
not worth the cost. When the carbon tax was announced, small businesses were promised a hefty rebate. The government is now sitting on $2.5 billion in collected revenues, while insolvency skyrocket and businesses suffer under higher taxes and inflation. Wow. As the Prime Minister broke his promise on the carbon tax rebate, why won't he simply spike the hike, axe the tax, and give small businesses their money back?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker.
Hello, Rachel. What's up?
The MP who just spoke is a member of Parliament for BC. British Columbia is rightly proud of its place as a leader in Canada and the world in putting a price on pollution since 2008. This is a provincial system that the people of BC support. So either the Conservative Party is ignorant of this or disrespects the people of BC. When it comes to small businesses, that money will be going back to small businesses very soon.
The Honourable Member from Mission Masqueet, Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, it's not just small businesses that have been betrayed by this government on the carbon tax. First Nations and Métis communities are owed over $1 billion in promised rebates. In what seems like a sick April Fool's joke, remote and rural communities will see the cost of the carbon tax increase by 23% on April 1st. This means higher costs to operate schools, band offices, and businesses. So I'll ask again, when will this government spike the hike, axe the tax, and give remote and rural Indigenous communities and Métis communities their money back?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
That's a sad question.
Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for that MP from British Columbia, but
Hey, Rachel.
I am really disappointed that he seems entirely ignorant of how the price on pollution works in BC.
That's an insult.
There is no federal backstop in BC. There is no federal backstop on BC small businesses, on the people of BC. BC has an exceptional system pricing pollution, which the province has had in place since 2008. The people of BC are proud of it, and they should be.
Honourable Member from North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, $100,000 is not chicken feed, because Richard, a farmer in the Shuswap, paid that out in carbon tax to run his farm instead of buying feed to raise chickens and put food on Canadians' tables. Now, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister wants to raise the carbon tax by 23% as part of his plan to quadruple it. After 8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will he spike the hike, axe the tax, let farmers grow the food so that Canadians can afford to put food on the table?
Hey LJ, what's up? How are you today?
Economic development.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be part of a
Hutchins
government
again,
that
huh?
understands climate change is real and understands the impact that it's having on farmers.
Disappointing Nova Scotians right across the province.
Firsthand as I've traveled, the impact of hurricanes, the impact of drought, all that has a cost on our farmers. I'm proud to be part of a government that is fighting climate change so my little granddaughter can say, Nanny, you tried to make a difference, because climate change is real and it is impacting everyone.
The Honourable hands.
Oh, here he is. This is who Poilievre was talking about so much earlier. Yeah. This will be interesting. He's only young. He's in early 30s? Mid 30s?
Order. I'll invite the Honourable.
Let's see what Cody Blois has to say.
I'll invite all members, please. There seems to be great enthusiasm to hear from the Honourable Member. The Honourable Member from King's Hands from the top.
Here we go. This is interesting.
Tories stood up. They might not like the question, though, because the member from Carleton talks about farmers in King's Hands, but he actually stands in their way. He will not allow Bill 234 to come to this House to actually be voted on. And so I called on the member of Carleton to actually do that to support farmers. But my question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister from Nova Scotia. Can he tell this House, and indeed Nova Scotians, the work that we've done to adjust the federal backstop to support rural Canadians, and including the programs we put in place on affordability around home heating and heat pumps, contrary to those guys across the way?
What's up, LJ? Took him a while to get up, but he did get up.
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, over the past year and a half in our home province of Nova Scotia, we have felt the impacts of climate change more than any other part of the country, with wildfires, Hurricane Fiona, floods in the Honourable Member's riding. He has been a staunch advocate for rural communities and for the agricultural sector every step of the way. Because of his advocacy, we have
Sandy.
doubled the rural rebate that
How are you?
households in Nova Scotia receive. Because of his advocacy, we are helping cover the cost of heat pumps that is saving between $1,500 and $4,700 a year. And because of his advocacy, the provincial government is retreating on a policy that would impact the wine growers in his region. I am proud to stand alongside him today and will be for years.
It's a dancing fool, that Sean Fraser. They all get up and clap like something great happened. Maybe it did, not from where I sit. Oh, Trudeau's bailed. He's gone.
Liberal government's soft on crime policies, more and more Canadians are becoming victims to violent crime right across the country. The Toronto
Peaceful
Star
warrior.
reports that carjackings have more than doubled so far in 2024, and break-in entries for the purpose of car theft have already exceeded the total number of all of last year. Canadians not only concerned about their private property, but also the safety of their families. And I met some of these families in Brampton this weekend, Mr. Speaker, and they want to know, when will this Prime Minister drop his soft on crime policies and protect Canadians from real violent crime?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, our government is always focused on protecting Canadians from crime.
Absolutely.
That's why we're working
This
with police
clown,
forces,
how red in the face is he
municipal
today?
authorities and provincial governments to do exactly everything we need to do to crack down on this increasingly violent criminal activity. I've had conversations with the Premier of Ontario, with police chiefs across the country. The RCMP are working in collaboration with their partners in these jurisdictions. The Canadian Border Services Agency sees 68 vehicles at the Port of Montreal this week alone. And Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to do everything we need to do to keep Canadians safe.
Exactly.
The Honourable Member from Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, what they did do is bring in Bill C5 and 75 that allows these same criminals to quickly get bail and be out on the street, sometimes on the same day. As a result, small businesses across the country are not only dealing with the higher taxes, like the carbon tax that the Liberals have brought forward, but now are having to pay for extra security to protect their businesses and their families from property theft, organized crime, extortion, shootings, arson. This is a new reality for businesses and families in Canada after 8 years of this Prime Minister. He's not the worst. He's not worth the cost, corruption, or crime, Mr. Speaker. When will it end?
The Honourable
I think you're
Minister
right,
for Justice
Bannister
and
Post. Oh no, this creep.
Opposite, but what I respect most of all is that he actually wasn't here when we were voting on Bill C-75. That piece of legislation actually enhanced the penalties on summary conviction for auto theft, something that most of his colleagues voted against. He wasn't here, so I'll excuse him on that one. On the issue of mandatory minimum penalties, there's a guy named Ben Perrin. He might remember that individual. He used to be the league advisor to a guy named Stephen Harper. Ben Perrin has been on the record as saying that mandatory minimum penalties were a gross error, a miscarriage of justice, and perpetuate systemic racism. That's why we reversed them. I wish these guys would get on board.
I'm with you there, Tanya. Agreed. We don't have the infrastructure yet.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haut-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, car thefts have almost doubled in Toronto on last year, and 2024 has just begun. And where have the stolen vehicles gone? The Port of Montreal. I applaud the efforts of the Sûreté du Québec in February, but the federal government must do more. That's why our leader has proposed amending the criminal code to bring back tougher penalties for car thieves and provide the necessary resources to the ports to help them stop the crime. Does the Liberal government realize their strategy isn't working on car theft? The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. Mr. Speaker, in terms of crime in my community and car thefts, well, we are prioritizing this. The investments we did at the Port of Montreal, it affects 28 million, 121 million for police assistance, and another 15 million to help border services operate at the border. Our investments are the action we need to fight this extremely important issue and to promote security in our communities. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Speaker, I believe that no one in this country should ever spend their days in pain because they cannot afford to see a dentist. Oral health is health. I hear from seniors in Dartmouth Cole Harbour that the new Canadian Dental Care Plan is going to make a real difference in their quality of life. Yet the Conservatives just don't care. They voted against dental care for Canadians, and we know that Conservatives always choose cuts over care. Can the Minister of Citizen Services please let Canadians know how many people have applied for the program and how many seniors will lose their dental coverage if the Conservatives get their way?
The Honourable Minister for Citizen Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What
I am
a
very
creepy-looking
happy to
young
advise my
man.
colleague that thanks to his efforts, more than 1.5 million Canadians have successfully enrolled
He's
in our
a
dental
minister?
care program. Today,
I didn't know that about Terry Beach.
those
Lord.
70 and older can apply, and children and people with disabilities can apply starting in June.
Someone, when did you sneak in here?
9 million Canadians to benefit. I do not understand why Conservatives want to take dental care away from more than 1 in 5 Canadians. But if we all work together, Canadians can make sure that they never have that opportunity.
Before I pass the floor to the Honourable Member from Victoria, I'm going to ask the Honourable Member from Perth Wellington, please, who is an experienced member, to not shout out his comments and allow members to who have
I think that's Chong, Michael Chong, I think from Wellington.
My apologies. My apologies. Both are very respected members. The Honourable Member from Wellington Halton Hills, I should have said. The Honourable Member from Victoria now has the floor.
It's like an elephant sitting on my chest. That's how a child in Edmonton describes the air quality right now. Canada currently has the worst air quality in North America. Our kids are breathing in harmful toxins, and it's only going to get worse with this year's wildfire season. But the Liberals are acting like it's business as usual, breaking climate promises while handing out billions to Canada's biggest polluters. And the Conservatives can't even agree whether climate change is real. Will the Liberals stop putting the interests of oil and gas CEOs over the health and safety of our children?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for her question. In fact, we are doing exactly that. We're the first country, the only country in the G20 to have phased out fossil fuel subsidies. 2 years ahead of everyone else. We're the only country that has committed to eliminate public financing for fossil fuel subsidies.
Man.
We have the best performance of all G7 countries in terms of greenhouse gas reduction between 2019 and 2021. We are working to fight climate change. We are working to improve air quality all across the country, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend, Flair cancelled one of its flights back to Canada and left over 100 passengers stranded in another country. No communication with them, no food provided, no rebooking on other airlines. They had to find their own way back to this country. Now, if this sounds like deja vu, it's because the exact same thing happened 2 years ago, and the Liberals promised to stand up to the big airline CEOs. So to the minister, will he tell these passengers why his supposedly new and improved air passenger rights let them down so badly?
The Honourable Minister
That surprised me in committee the other day. He had a backbone.
I always stand up for passengers' rights, Mr. Speaker. There was nothing before we came in. Now we're in touch with Flair, we're in touch with our other airline companies, Mr. Speaker, to see what we can do, but we'll always side with our air passengers.
Yeah. Thank you for coming out, Kenny Rogers. Take a walk.
Orders of the day.
Oh, Lord. Is that it?
Orders of the day, ordre du jour, ordre management.
Yeah, that is it. Well, well, well. How about that, gang? Pretty fun. Like, Pierre was on fire early on. Justin did show up, so it is always a little more entertaining when he's around. It was interesting to see Poilievre in the points that he was really going for, trying to make about the East Hants situation. And then finally, Cody Blois did get up, but it's just so much fun. We're going to wrap it up right here, guys. We will be back tomorrow. It's going to be Wicket Wednesdays. They're usually the best day of the week. I find Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are the most entertaining. I like Fridays, too, because you get to see a lot of faces that don't usually get in front of the camera or floor time in the House of Commons. Yeah, so anyway, I'm Ehren, Question Period Canada. Love you guys. Thanks for all the support, hanging out. It's fun. We're catching up on our Canadian soap opera every day. We're doing it here. So like and subscribe, share it with somebody that you know that might be interested. What I'm curious to do is, or I would like to try to do, is have some people that are like, they think they're liberal, start watching some of the show and just absorb it. Like, again, I'm not trying to twist anybody's arm or anything. And again, I'm not against the Liberal Party, and I'm not a conservative either. I'm a Canadian that doesn't like the way that things have been, and I'm concerned for my fellow citizens that they're going to continue down this path. We just need a change. I know I come off on here probably as like pro-Poilievre, which I am currently. That might change after he's elected. Who knows? Like, he's got to come through on some of those promises, axe this tax, and get the economy back online. Anyway, that's my little rant for now. We've got some more videos we'll be putting out this evening. Would anybody be interested? I should have done a poll on this one. I think maybe tonight I'm going to do a live broadcast, rebroadcasting from 2017 when Jordan Peterson was in Parliament in the Senate and taking questions from them for an hour. It was that was the pronouns issues that was 2017. Can you believe it's been 7 years already? So I think that I'm going to take a look at that this evening. Just I need to do some research on it anyways. I haven't had a chance to watch it. It's a full hour, and I'm probably going to do my research in a live broadcast. Anyways, take care, guys. I love hanging out. Love seeing everybody every day. We'll be chatting soon. If I missed anybody saying hello, I try to say hello to everybody, and just try to keep it friendly here. That's it. It doesn't matter. Just don't call me late for dinner, Kirk. However you'd like to spell it. We're all good right here. Don't call me late for dinner. That's it, gang. We're going to get going. Remember to have something healthy to eat. It's getting warmer out. Like, the spring is on its way, but we still got to keep the heat on, so try to stay warm as well. It's expensive. Take care, gang. We'll catch you tomorrow. To all the new members and anybody that's the first time checking out the channel, check us out again tomorrow. See if it's a good fit for you, because there's lots of places you can watch this stuff. But we have a really cool group here of similar minded people that are just interested in changing things up and kind of getting things back on track, economically in Canada. So that's it. Take care, guys. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow and this evening. I'll figure out and put up a good amount of time to notify people if I'm going to be doing that Jordan Peterson live broadcast tonight. Okay,